Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Thomas Expert Series, and thank you for joining us today. We're going to get started in just a moment. In the meantime, I want everyone to double check, make sure their microphone is muted. This Expert Series will be recorded and placed on demand within 24 hours, so please let your colleagues know how much you enjoyed the presentation today and direct them to the On Demand tab or have them sign up for our future 2024 talks. To get everyone a little familiar with the chat, I want to see where everyone's tuning in from today. I'm in New Jersey. Where are you at, Brittany?
I'm in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Awesome. And Joe?
I'm in Holland, Michigan.
Awesome. And we've got Georgia and Philly, North Carolina, sunny Florida. It's snowing up in South Jersey. San Francisco, Northern North Carolina. Awesome. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Joseph and Brittany here to talk about error reduction through lab labeling.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for that. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and then we'll get started. All right. Can everyone see this?
Looks good.
Perfect. Well, everyone, thank you so much for having us. We're looking forward to speaking with you guys a little bit about this. Before we jump into the presentation, I do want to just do some quick introductions if you guys are not familiar with myself or Joe that's helping me with this presentation. So to kick it off, I'm Brittany Wachowski. I am with Brady Corporation, and I have been for the past 2.5 years as a channel manager. I cover a variety of distribution channels, one being Thomas Scientific and the lab industry overall. My role is really primarily tasked with driving sales and maintaining that relationship between Brady and the distributor. Aside from that, I'm located in Milwaukee, where we're headquartered, and I reside with my husband of 2 years and my 9-month-old son. Now I'll pass it over to Joe for his introduction.
Thank you, Brittany. My name is Joey Sassi. I've been with Brady Corporation for nearly 4 years. I'm on our strategic account management team here, and my primary focus is working with our laboratory market customers, which I work with all sales, marketing, product development related activities through the Americas for Brady Corporation. And I'm located in Western Michigan, as I mentioned, and look forward to working further with you all. And thank you for having us here today on this presentation.
Thanks, Joe. Now that we have introduced ourselves, we're here to speak with you all about data-driven details to reduce errors in the lab with labeling. We're really hoping with our expertise, we can help you and your customers improve productivity and reduce costs. We'll cover a variety of topics, but really honing in on sample identification challenges within a variety of industries, identifying the risks of sample handling and how those mistakes can happen. And finally, from a company that's closing in on 110 years old and is a global leader in safety identification and compliances, we'll walk through a handful of Brady solutions that can help you out. With that, it's important to highlight that we've identified sample management as a leading factor while in the lab, yet we found that out of 350 scientists, 60% reported having lost samples and 50% reported the loss impacted their total sample count. Here at Brady, we really invest heavily in our R&D to create labels that can meet your requirements, whether it's application-based, temperature, usage, or colors. Not only are you losing samples, but some of the samples lost are due to mislabeling. We've seen firsthand customers lose their samples, that can cost upwards of $712, but each industry can experience different losses and what that can mean for you and your clients. Now I'll toss it over to Joe to help explain how sample identification challenges vary by industry.
Thanks, Brittany. So as she explained, those are some glaring statistics of what happens when there's errors in sample processing, especially with identification side of things too. And that's what this webinar will be about today, is to go over what those challenges are, what to look out for, and then finally, obviously, how to make a better workflow process improve processes in the lab environment and so forth. So, but again, as you can see, loss means different things in a variety type of labs. And it could be something from a small inconvenience of having someone having to come back in to, retake a blood specimen, for example, or a major loss that could have financial and legal impacts on organizations. So, and that means a lot of different things in many different settings. So like, for example, in a clinical setting, a sample loss could lead to misdiagnosis, delays in diagnosis, or even fatalities and lawsuits. In a pharmaceutical environment, it could postpone or halt drug development and production. In academic laboratories, it could impair or even void your findings. That could also mean potential risk of losing future funding if that becomes an ongoing issue with certain institutions. And in the biotech settings, it can compromise quality control, data integrity, or drug safety, and opens the door for intellectual property loss, delays in technology and product development. Either way, a single sample loss means a lot of critical data and information that would need to be remade, lost, and puts a lot of money at risk. So next, we're going to look at the challenges that are associated with sample labeling. So they mean a lot of different things still, but the themes of the challenges are pretty common throughout the industry segments in the lab healthcare field. So illegible handwriting, especially on the handwriting side, that's obviously a big one too. Labels falling off during processing, being unreadable after processing. So for example, in histology or in the staining process, there might be some issues where the chemicals reagents render it useless or illegible, or being in liquid nitrogen, for example. And then labels sticking to gloves, common things. So those are the main challenges too that stick out. And actually, just some further information on that. It was kind of known here that labs that use, like, say, semi-automated or non-automated processes, which mainly include like handwriting labels. Surprisingly, these were the ones that were reported to cause like the biggest problems, with about 60% of those surveyed reporting label failure. So that's no surprise that handwriting specimens have been repeatedly shown to have the highest failure rates. Where that's not as prevalent is obviously with those with automated limb systems in a variety of settings. And the good thing for the industry and for this type of problem is that we're all seeing the onset of limb systems, across various sizes of organizations, right? So that helps eliminate that too. But those are some pain points to look at too. If you're talking to labs, talking to people, or if you're working in a lab yourself and have that issue, that could be something to look at, like, that's the pain point problem, and could be something that could be easily resolved. So with that said, there's lots of just inherent challenges in the lab itself. Labels can smear, right? So if you don't have the right type of label, with all the chemicals, reagents, environments that labels are subjected to, that can smear, come off, or lose print. So where you automatically lose that identification that you're trying to accomplish in the first place. Being in frozen environments, that's also critical. As we all know, whether it's in a ULT freezer or for long-term storage sampling in liquid nitrogen, labels could be at risk just due to that inherent ambient environment that it's subjected to. So those are problems. And labels dissolving, that seems kind of possibly far-fetched, but not necessarily, right, if you're using the wrong type of label for the wrong application. So that's important to get into, which I'll explain a little bit further here in the presentation. So next, we're going to talk about what are those weak spots in the sample handling process and in handling workflow process here. So we know what the challenges are. There's inherent areas where there's going to always be issues, right? So what we're going to do is walk through some examples, but the main ones here are specimen requisition mismatch, unlabeled specimens, or mislabeled specimens. So those are some common identification errors that we see out there in the labs. And we'll go through a workflow process here. So let's just take some examples of, we're going to be like in the first phase of things. Say it's a pre-analysis phase. Some of the workflow steps in this stage would be determining tests and samples required, sample preparation, labeling, transportation of samples to the lab, and some inherent risks. And that this particular phase would be identification, labeling error. So there's maybe labels or errors up front in just identifying this particular specimen or sample in that case. And the next phase, the analysis phase, a possible workflow step there that we could see potential issues would be during tests and experiments, or just obtaining and analyzing results. And the risk here would be the data sample alignment. So in case there's not a good, robust system in place to track and trace, that data and sample alignment could take place and could cause some potential errors. And then finally, in the post-analysis phase, some of the workflow steps there were when you're generating reports or doing sample storage or disposal. Those are areas where there could potentially be risks such as label failure. And that's where, again, where if kind of following the proper steps up front, if that's not done, a label could, again, fall off in liquid nitrogen, which has been common and something that's been seen throughout the industry for wrong type of labels in the wrong environment, wrong application. So those are just some basic examples here of the workflow process and where you can find errors. And then, so now we've looked at what are those weak spots, the challenges that are involved, and what can be done to pursue a better workflow. So we're not going to always eliminate, all errors, right? But you can do some key improvements in sample identification and workflow handling to help with that. So with that said, there's different ways like reducing labeling errors. So that could be done through the establishment of a standardized barcoding system at the point of sample acquisition. So that could be done through like a larger LIMS system, but also could be done through a standalone barcoding system, especially if that's a smaller lab that doesn't need to make that big investment in the software. Using machine printed labels, that can remove the variable of handwriting and just eliminate one of the biggest known risks in sample identification, period, as I kind of alluded to earlier. And then reducing label failure, making sure you have a durable label that's designed to endure temperature extremes to which samples are subjected to, so such as liquid nitrogen freezing, autoclaving, staining procedures, long-term storage. All of these processes have the potential to corrupt, smudge, or otherwise render the label unreadable or simply separated from the specimen container itself. And then one thing that I like to at least promote personally too, and is you're starting to see a little bit more of, is creating color. So that creates its own visual language. So an employee, a lab tech, is able to process, and identify something before they're even aware of it. So when color is a part of a standardized process, it differentiates samples, improves efficiency to reduce errors. And then testing all labels before use. There's a lot of label manufacturers out there, and they all have performance data which is great, but best practice calls for testing new materials through the entire sample handling workflow process, as I mentioned earlier. And the reason being is that, sure, there are certain procedures and tests that are about the same industry-wide, right? But there's always those little nuances with each individual lab where it just doesn't hurt to do that. And then that's where you could reach out to someone at Brady, for example, to say, hey, I'd like to, try some samples out, see if this works for my process environment. I'll provide some feedback and, making sure we have the right option, right application. And then finally, using lab automation. That's a big one here, which kind of the rest of the presentation will flow into, is that there's lots of tools to eliminate some of that process of the applying by hand and even improving efficiencies, which we'll get into here in the next part of the presentation. And so with that said, automating labeling is a benefit here. And so there's three areas where we found that there's great improvement by putting label automation into play. And then I'll go through each one of these with some examples. So on the creation phase side of things, labeling software. So that's an easy and efficient way to create specimen labels and laboratory ID. Software can be written specifically for the lab, which can help with sample tracking, sample management, as well as identifying instruments and equipment in the lab. And you can also create built-in label wizards and templates just to simplify the laboratory label making process, even for the most complex labeling projects. So I'm sure many of you have already worked with or sold LIMS systems and are aware of that too, but there's lots of areas now where that could be helpful. Even Brady Workstation is an example where Brady has that with their printers. And you can create that even dropping in Excel files into the label wizard template and create labels on demand that way. And then obviously the printers. So we're looking at the output side of things, right? So we talked about the input with the software, now the output. If you want to get a good label, you're going to want to start by actually having like a printer that prints out clear and readable print in the first place. And then making sure you have a high performance printer on site that can create on-demand labels that can help you create those for those lab applications that are really tough, such as, tubes that are going into cryo storage, tissue cassettes, slides, and, a bunch of others. Then there's the application phase. So that's where is a unique solution where there's vial label applicators out there that automatically take printed labels and apply them to the tubes and vials themselves. So that's way that can free up time in the lab environment, whether it's a tech or anyone else, lab tech working on, applying labels. It's a great way of automated efficiency, and these applicators can help improve workflow and accuracy. And I'm sure you've seen some of those from these larger systems to something like a vial ID applicator that Brady provides, for example. And then on this side as well, too, again, the materials. Label materials need to be engineered to survive and perform in the harsh chemicals and range of temperatures of the lab environment. Making sure you have durable labels that remain legible and stay put on lab equipment is critical to eliminate rework and tedious label reapplication. So we talked about what those benefits are there too. Now going into how automated labeling can help a lab and those in the lab environments. Streamlining workflow. I mean, that's huge, right? It's if you're not hand applying labels versus getting them auto applied onto the label itself, right? That's one obvious one. Increasing product output. That way is like where you're just now able to do things faster and quicker instead of like doing something that's more manual. And then decreasing workflow errors. So you're eliminating the part of like whether you're handwriting or just kind of transferring data from a sheet to a larger software system. You're able to kind of eliminate that part of the process as well and improve efficiency again on that front.
Are others able to hear?
No, I've lost the audio.
Okay. Hey, Joe, are you there?
I think he just dropped.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Okay. You know what? I know there is some technical difficulties, so I will take it away from here. I mean, if Joe hops back
there
on,
is a problem in the audio.
can others hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay.
we have just lost Joe.
Okay. Hopefully Joe can jump back on, but I will take it from here and discuss a little bit more about automating labels in the lab. We've highlighted the benefits from material, from printers, from the time that it saves. But it's also a really smart investment. How much of your customers or your time spent hand labeling when you can have an automatic system where you can either attach Excel to your printer, have the consumables that can withstand any sort of environment, the application. It's just a smart investment. There's also flexible solutions within there, easily switch out the labels or the ribbons, whatever it might be. You also hold that data integrity. If you're inputting something from Excel through that printer, you know the information is going to be correct. As well as just it's less handling, more safety. And let's also add, it's just less messy, right? You're able to create a more smooth process within that. I think by now everyone understands that, Brady, we are experts when it comes to labels, but we do have other areas, proven labels for solutions within the lab, whether that be cryo, track and trace, histology, color, sample prep, and testing solutions. We typically have a solution for you, and if not, there are custom options. But as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, we do invest a lot into R&D to create labels that are beneficial for you and your customer, and a lot of research goes into that to make sure that we are executing on that. Speaking of our labels, if you guys do need help on deciding which label is best suited for you, we do have a free sample pack. And within these samples, we'll provide a variety of our lab-specific labels. And on each of those labels, there'll be detailed information, examples of what our material number is, so it's easy for you to research, kind of some benefits to this label, what you're labeling, and it can go from our freezer bonds, which is great for cryo, as well as our GHS labels. So a variety of labels that you can get for free just by going to that link there. And while it's also great to keep in mind that Brady has all these resources for you within your lab, and there's different parts of that lab that might not need labels, there might need to be some spill kits or signs. So whether it's the general identification, printers and consumables, spill kits, signs, floor marking tape, we have a sales team that are Brady experts and trained to help you provide the best solution for your customer. We also have a great partnership with Thomas Scientific, so we look forward to continuing to build that partnership and really help Thomas reps become more familiarized with our Brady product and the solutions that we can provide for you guys. I do want to thank you all for letting us speak with you about reducing errors in the lab, and we're really hopeful that with this, we can continue to help you again in the future and help spell Brady and Thomas Scientific. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Brittany. I am going to steal the screen real quick, and anyone who has any questions, feel free to type them out in the chat. And I'm going to share my screen for just a moment. Okay. So I do want to take a quick moment to let you know that there is a giveaway if you take the survey. Little slow today, but that's okay. And the survey is right here. And then also we have literature, web links, as well as some videos that they touched on today. You can also look at the upcoming talks, and you can view the on-demand talks, and then you can also explore the labs. And I'll go ahead and hand it back to Brady to see if anyone has any questions.
Yeah, I saw a few questions pop up, and one, here's the chat. The best way to partner with Brady and Thomas Scientific. I think that's a great question. Me being in the corporate office, I am a great resource for you, for your team. Feel free to reach out to me, because the best way to work with Brady in the field is going to be with our reps, and vice versa with Thomas Scientific. If you are not aware of who your rep would be, feel free to reach out to me, and I can direct you to who that might be. Brady is separated into two different sales teams, one being the visual workplace safety, which is going to focus more on safety, think lockout takeout, floor marking tapes, safety printers, GHS. And then we are also separated into our product and wire identification, which in the lab environment, it's going to be that general identification, the printers, anything that might need to be labeled, like a vial, slide, etc. Our Brady sales team are experts in the field, and they're trained quite extensively on that product. And if you're not sure who that might be, again, just reach out to me and I'd be happy to direct you. As far as other solutions Brady can provide in the lab, it ranges, to be honest. I think what's really great about our sales team, and I know there are some Thomas Scientific reps that do have great relationships with our Brady partners, is whether or not you're working with, let's say, our safety rep or a product ID rep, they're able to uncover additional needs. So let's say you're in the field with one of our safety reps, they might say, hey, we have this freezer bond that can be, that the label can be applied to an already frozen vial. Or vice versa, if you're with our product identification rep, they might see that there's other lockout takeout opportunities or floor marking tapes that might be very helpful, and they're able to kind of pass a baton to their counterpart. We do offer spill kits, safety signs, a variety of printers, labels, really anything to help create a total solution. And if we don't have it, we can customize labels, and there's other areas that we can kind of customize to your specific need. Any other questions?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment to everybody who's listening, maybe. I don't know. I used to be in sales last year. I was one of the bigger Brady label tape salespeople in the company here in the Houston area. They will work with you on special sizes. So MD Anderson needed, they use a lot. They went through 15,000 to 33,000 labels a month in the MD Anderson facility. Well, they didn't want little label rolls. They wanted big 1,600, 15,000 labels per roll. And they'll work with you on that, and they'll make the labels for you in those big rolls for you. It's a sell point, bulk, because they don't want to keep changing that 6,600 roll out every single day. They just want to put one in there a week and just keep going with it. And also, one of the ways that I marketed was I would send, I came up with something, I said, got Brady. And I just sent out a mass email, got Brady, like got milk. Unfortunately, a lot of my Asian American friends thought, is there a problem with Brady label tape? And that was a problem. But I was like, no, there's not a problem. They didn't get the got milk thing. They just, oh, what's wrong with my Brady label tape? But I got a lot of business out of it with the labels, just reaching out to people and letting them know that we sell Brady label tape. So I hope that helps some of you with the sale.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick, for that. And like I mentioned previously, we do offer custom labels. We have a great quoting team in our corporate office that can help walk you through that process. And really, I can't speak because I don't have that experience, but I do know in the field, to Patrick's point, we will help, whether it be a different size, a different material, whatever it might be, if it needs to have a logo on it. And we do have a lot of capabilities when it comes to personalizing what your customer might need.
And this was an odd size. This was something that you just can't find on their website. They had to make it for MD Anderson. They had to put it on a 6,600 thing roll, 6,600 labels per roll. And then one of my sell things also was I went to MD Anderson. I said, well, if you buy 33 rolls of this, you get another break point. So the more labels you buy, the more break points you get with Brady as well. So maybe think about that when y'all are reaching out to your things, because they're buying these labels all year long. Just sell them a bunch at one time. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Patrick, for sharing that information and that really great story. That's I'm sure be helpful to the audience here. And to go off of Patrick's comments too, and what Brittany was showing a few slides ago, again, apologize for the delay or the interruption on the presentation on my side, but that picture of like the lab environment and different areas of where you can play in the lab or where you can find identification, kind of feeding off Patrick's comments, go to that site if you're like looking for opportunities to have conversations, because I'm sure there's gonna be a pain point at some of those areas. And you can even, as P was saying, you can do a lot of customs, even in signage, floor taping, sorbents on that side as well too, if you need that type of information. Labels is the obvious one. and so on. So there's lots of different areas where Brady could help out in those, and it can be customizable in many areas. And then I see there's if our labels are compatible with other printers like Zebra printers. Yes, they are. And they go through almost every printer. So that's one thing too. For a Thomas Scientific rep, this might be pretty, I guess, good to know, where that could be what's known as a conversion opportunity. If there's opportunities to sell labels, if for whatever reason can't displace the printer, or they're set in for whatever reason, there's always areas to get labels come through. So as Brittany mentioned, reach out to either of us or Brady rep that you work with, and we'll be happy to help there too.
Yeah, I failed to mention, I'm speaking about sales reps. Another great sales rep that we have on this call is Joe Yasasi. And what's really great about Joe on this call is that he's not siloed to a specific territory. He can go national. So Joe is a really great contact for you and your customer, whether you are on the West Coast, East Coast, or South. He's able to help support you and really discover those needs. So I apologize, Joe. You're always a part of the sales team, but he's just someone that's great and can go nationwide.
Yeah, I'm here to help with you all too, whether it's a basic question or something on a large opportunity. I'm here to support you all.
Any other crazy Brady questions?
I think we're all good.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you all so much for joining us today. And thank you, Brady, for having this great talk.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thanks,
Yeah,
everybody.
thank you very much.